Kia ora, good morning and welcome to Ryan Bridge Today, Tuesday the 24th of February. Great to have your company this morning. On the show this hour, Labor is taking aim at Genesis Energy this morning over its profits and the fact that we taxpayers will be forking out to build new solar farms and a giant battery at Huntly. Genesis CEO Malcolm Johns is live at the desk with me. Chris Hipkins is live from Parliament. A new PwC survey of our CEOs reveals an interesting trend about AI. Why are we out of step with the rest of the world? Plus their picks for the year ahead in the economy. PwC's boss Andrew Holmes is here on that shortly. And just days after Randy Andy was arrested in the UK, Peter Mandelson, former UK ambassador to Washington, now charged by police over his relationship with Epstein. We're live to London for the very latest. All that and more. First, Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The government says it's putting its money where its mouth is after promising to back the growth of electricity generators. Genesis yesterday announced a $400 million capital raise for new generation projects, with the government pledging up to $200 million of that. It follows a commitment from Finance Minister Nicola Willis last year that the Crown would support gentailers to increase generation capacity. She says by committing capital, the government's both keeping its promise and meeting its obligation to maintain a 51% share in the gentailer. Our air traffic controllers are heading to places like the Middle East and South Asia in favour of higher salaries. Airways New Zealand has warned a parliamentary select committee that the world is starting to poach our controllers. Chair Darren Cusack says that this is concerning, but it does show that our controllers are trained to a high standard. Aviation Industry Association CEO Simon Wallace told Ryan Bridge our starting salary is around $110,000 to $115,000. He says Middle Eastern countries are offering figures a lot more than that, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One expert suggests vaping should be a last resort to help smokers quit. Newstalk ZB can reveal Health NZ has signed a $500,000 contract to provide free vapes to smokers after it conducted a trial last year. More than 7,000 vapes and 67,000 refills have been distributed in the past 2 months alone. Asthma and Respiratory Foundation boss Letitia Harding says thousands of smokers have quit using nicotine patches and gum, and vapes are not a proven tool. It's believed tinkering with dog control laws won't stop attacks, only sweeping reform will. 3 people were injured in an attack by 2 American Bulldog crosses in Christchurch's Brindwa on Saturday, just days after a fatal mauling in Northland. Auckland Law School professor Marcelo Rodrigues Ferreira says dog control laws are often tightened in the wake of high-profile attacks. He says that's a poor way of making policy, and evidence-based solutions would be far better. A memorial to the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine disaster is now due to be finished later than expected. The Department of Conservation is proposing to open a memorial at the disaster site a week prior to the November 19 anniversary. It had wanted the memorial done at the end of summer, but has revised the timeline to allow families of the deceased to give input on the design. It's been 4 years since the Kremlin launched its full-scale assault, costing lives and crippling Ukraine's economy. Ukraine's now seeking global support, including from New Zealand, for a new claims commission and special tribunal to hold Russia accountable for crimes of aggression.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, the Milan Cortina Olympic chef de mission Marty Toomey expects Snow Sports New Zealand to earn more high-performance funding after a haul of 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal, with 10 of the 17 athletes making finals. Nathan Cleary is saluting the legal brilliance of his father and coach Ivan after he had the halfback cleared to play Penrith's season opener at NRL League's judiciary. Mexican Tennis Open organisers claim that the tournament will go ahead in Acapulco despite violence after the death of the country's most wanted drug baron.
We Kiwis are generally known around the world as good sorts, as kind people. We open doors, we say please and thank you, we help each other out, we help a neighbour out in their moment of need. It's one of the traits I think we're most proud of as New Zealanders. But one thing that we hate more than anything is when that kindness is taken for granted. Then it is no more Mr. Nice Guy. Remember the kids stealing from dairies and ram-raiding poor old hard-working dairy owners? The minute they started beating people with screwdrivers and hammers, sympathy evaporated. Sure, some of these kids may have had hard upbringings, but there are plenty of kids with tough upbringings who choose not to drive a Nissan Tita through a four-square window at 3 in the morning. So we voted for boot camps, we reversed our no-chase police pursuit policy, we cracked down. Kindness has its limits. And a long time ago, we crossed the very same line with beggars and rough sleepers. We care about them. We donate our time and our money to city missions. We pay our taxes knowing that they should be going to help in some way improve their lives. But there are also a bunch of idiots fighting and spitting and swearing and attacking people on the street. Happened to a friend of mine a few weeks ago. It's costing business. It's destroying the reputation of entire swathes of city shops. These shops provide jobs for the rest of us, especially in our biggest city, where foreign tourists' first impressions should not be a punch-up between two roughies on a footpath. So while the headlines about this move on policy, like the crackdown on ram raiders before it, or the hard line on KO tenants before that, they will say that it's cruel and it's mean. But I think they will be out of step with the reality that people are facing in their own lives.
Herald Now weather.
Kia ora, another fine day for most of us. We have got a bit of a weak feature draped across the middle parts of the country, bringing a touch more cloud and some wetter weather around that western coast to start things off. But either side of that front, we've got some pretty decent weather. Down here in the south, perhaps a little bit cooler than yesterday, but plenty of dry, sunny weather and highs back to around about 19 to 22 degrees Celsius through the daytime. As we head up the south line, we'll meet that cloud and some wetter weather around the western coast to start things off. But even here, it should dry up nicely for the afternoon. The cloud breaking away to give us some decent spells of afternoon sunshine. It'll also be a bit of a cloudier start through places like Taranaki down towards Wellington, with the cloud again thick enough at times to give an odd shower. But for most of us, it's a dry day. Most of those showers about the ranges. The cloud, though, will creep up towards Hawke's Bay this afternoon, but again, plenty of dry weather and a fine-looking story through the Bay of Plenty and across towards Coromandel. There's a few pockets of early morning fog through parts of Waikato down towards the Central Plateau, but here that clears off, and then a fine-looking day for Waikato northwards. Plenty of sunshine this afternoon.
Time now is 6 minutes after 7. Great to have your company. In breaking news, Peter Mandelson, high-flying member of British society, has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Mandelson was sacked as the UK's ambassador to the US late last year after the depth of his relationship with convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was revealed. He later resigned, you'll remember, from the Labour Party and the House of Lords. Police say he was arrested in Camden following search warrants at 2 addresses. He's been taken to a London police station where he'll be interviewed, and we will have updates for you as they come to hand, dropping like flies this morning. Right, 7:07, just weeks after we were warned to brace for even higher power prices, one of our big four gentailers has announced record half-year profits. Genesis Energy has posted a net profit of $95 million, up 35%, now raising $400 million to fund further growth and investment in infrastructure through an equity raise. But as a company that's 51% owned by us, the taxpayers, should we be happy it's doing so? Joining me now is Malcolm Johns, Chief Executive at Genesis. Malcolm, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
The Labour leader has given a speech yesterday. I don't know whether you caught any of it. What did you think? He said Genesis Energy has just announced record profits, and now they're asking the New Zealand public, through the government, to contribute to build new generation. The real question is why Genesis is making such huge profits and not investing in it themselves.
Well, we are investing. We're investing $2 billion to build new solar, wind and grid-scale batteries. We're raising $400 million of that $2 billion. So $1.6 billion is coming out of our profits.
So you just need a top-up?
We just need a top-up. And
what do you say to him? I mean, he's trying to tell the public that you guys are creaming it and can't be asked investing in your own generation.
Look, just like anyone who puts money into a KiwiSaver fund, you expect a return. We provide a good return to all our shareholders, the government included. The reality is that with this top-up, we can do in 6 years what would have taken us 10 to 15 years. And the easiest way to get power prices down is to build new generation, and we're spending $2 billion doing that.
The solar side of it, I understand. What about the firming capacity? You know, it's for the dry years, our big problem that we've got. What specifically of the 400 million will that go towards?
Yeah, so the battery that we're building at Huntly Power Station at the moment is a very large battery, can support around about 80 to 100,000 households for 2 hours. That allows us to move the generation that solar produces in the middle of the day to dinner time when most consumers want it. And so a lot of the 400 million will go towards solar and battery, and then we have some wind farms we're building as well. In addition to that, Huntly Power Station is very critical to New Zealand when it doesn't rain and the wind isn't blowing, and we're extending the life of the coal-fired generation for 10 years.
Okay, so most of this money is going towards those projects that you've just mentioned, either accelerating them or helping to pay
Accelerating them, yeah.
Okay, and the battery is an interesting one because you're saying we can use the sun when it's not actually, the sun isn't shining, if we have a battery to do it.
That's right. You produce the electrons at lunchtime, but New Zealanders want them at breakfast and dinner time, so we park them in the battery for a few hours and bring them out at dinner time.
How much does the battery cost?
It's $135 million for the first stage and about $100 million for the second stage.
Why so expensive?
It's a very big battery, Ryan.
How much can it power? Like, how much can it store?
It can store 100 megawatts for 2 hours, so 200 megawatt hours. So to put that into context, that's somewhere between 80 and 100,000 households for 2 hours can be supported off Huntly Power Station.
Can we battery our way out of our energy problems?
No.
Okay, why not?
Batteries are very good for shifting electrons for small periods of time. And that's great when you've got rain and when the wind is blowing. You can use solar more effectively, and that means you're not using your water during the middle of the day to generate hydroelectricity, so that improves the amount of electricity you can put into the system at dinner time. But if it hasn't rained or it's not blowing, batteries aren't that good because you need the base electricity to be able to use them effectively.
Why are you making record profits?
Because it rained a lot last year. The year before it didn't rain a lot and we didn't make as much money. That's the reality of living in a weather-driven electricity system. There will be some years when things are very good and some years when things are not so good. We smooth that out for our customers so they don't have volatile power bills.
Do you find it frustrating when politicians get involved and accuse you of, being too rich?
So my job is to run the company as effectively as we can and provide a return for our shareholders. The government is one of our shareholders and we intend to provide a return for them just like everybody else.
Do you think it's appropriate that they continue to have a 51%? Are you agnostic to that?
That's a matter for the people of New Zealand and the Parliament. Who our shareholders are is incredibly important on a day-to-day basis. And so that's a matter for New Zealand and the Parliament to decide.
Malcolm, is this investment going to mean that we're paying more or less for our electricity prices?
Long-term electricity prices should trend down. And that's because we're building a lot of new generation, not just Genesis, but the other players in the market are building generation as well. But the security issue in New Zealand's electricity system will remain for as long as we rely on wind and rain predominantly, and that's for the foreseeable future.
So that's why we need LNG, and that's why you've done a coal deal for Huntly.
The more fuel diversity we have in reserve, and look, let's be clear, success looks like having that reserve and never using it. Disaster looks like not having it and needing it because the lights go
Totally.
out. And so,
no complaints from me, but have we not solved this issue yet? Because when the coal deal was done, I was told basically, don't worry, this is going to sort us out. If we're up shit creek, this will help, this will sort it out. Now we need the LNG as well. So do we finally have enough options, enough levers to pull?
We're getting very close to having enough options, but we have to remember that the coal generation in New Zealand will disappear by the mid-2030s. The assets are just too old. We can't extend them beyond 2035 generally. And so gas turbines will last much longer into the future. And so the more fuel security you have for the gas turbines, the longer we can secure dry years for.
Right, so we will basically we will be doing gas longer than we're doing coal.
That's correct.
Interesting. Malcolm, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for being with me. Malcolm Johns, who's the Chief Executive at Genesis. Time is 13 minutes after 7. A big storm is battering the US East Coast with more than 40 million people under a blizzard warning as we go to air. Parts of the country have had more than 55 centimetres of snow, while 35 centimetres has fallen in New York's Central Park. All non-essential travel is banned in the city. This is a mamdami exercise. City schools are closed today. Across the country, more than 5,000 flights have so far been cancelled. Hundreds of thousands of households are without power.
I'm sick of it. I don't want to see no more snow, especially here in the Jersey Shore. We're waiting for the summer to come in and all the vacationers come and see us and, just have a great summer. And I'll try to make a pathway here so people can come in and out of my building. And visibility is like zero. I can't see in front of my face right now. And I'm frozen and I ain't even got gloves on.
Poor guy has had enough. Right, it's the first time in 9 years that New York City has been under a blizzard warning. If you've got feedback for us this morning, do flick us an email, ryan@nzherald.co.nz. That's ryan@nzherald.co.nz, including your thoughts on the government getting involved with the equity raise to keep their 51% shareholding in Genesis. We'd love your feedback and to share it with our audience. Right, there's growing concern among New Zealand's bosses that businesses won't transform fast enough to keep up with AI. It's according to PwC's annual CEO survey, which found that while more than half expect the economy to improve this year, they're increasingly worried about AI. Andrew Holmes is the PwC New Zealand CEO with me this morning. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
First thing that jumped out at me looking at your results was actually there are fewer CEOs who are confident in the economy going forward at great speed this year than there were last year. I mean, it's only minor, but you look at their, expect the economy to improve, 58% in 2026. It was 59% in 2025. Revenue, confident about revenue growth, that's down slightly on the previous year as well. Is there something they know that we don't? Because the recovery is meant to be on.
Yeah, well, there's certainly still cautious optimism. And I think 2025 proved that it didn't deliver on all our hopes, and I think there's a little bit of that left over in 2026.
People are feeling once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
What about AI, and why the difference between how AI is affecting New Zealand businesses versus businesses globally?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, consistent with global CEOs, New Zealand CEOs do feel they have the right investment strategy, the right culture and the tech environment to really leverage AI. But a bigger majority, as you've pointed out, don't feel they're getting the impact of AI just yet. And I think that really comes down to an execution gap, being very deliberate around where you invest, the governance over AI and how you're getting returns in your business. So there's a little bit of execution gap there clearly in New Zealand, but the appetite to get moving is clearly there as well.
So 78%, this is AI had little or no impact on my business. 78%, so almost 80% of CEOs said little or no impact. Globally, it was 65% said little or no impact. So is this a bad thing that it's not having an impact, or is it a good thing? I guess it depends on who you ask.
Depends on who you ask. However, the sentiment is really that the impact and the investment isn't having the impact on business processes today in New Zealand businesses. Now, part of that is clearly execution. The companies we see doing really well are ones who are quite deliberate around, investing in those use cases which are going to have real scalable benefits and actually improve process. So we're seeing a lot of CEOs are getting the benefits, but there's a vast majority who have not yet cracked the nut just yet.
So can you give us an example of the types of jobs or the types of tasks that are having an impact?
Well, clearly knowledge is a big area. But fair to say, AI is relevant to all aspects of the business and all professions. So it is quite widespread.
Will your job be AI one day?
It's always going to impact the ways of working. We very much at PwC believe in tech-powered human-led. So it will definitely have an impact on ways of working, but that's all about value creation.
So your theory is it always needs to be, whatever you're doing with AI, it still needs to have a human signing it off kind of thing, or ticking the last yes box.
Well, underpinning AI and its impact is trust. So certainly from our perspective, having quality governance, responsible AI practice in place is essential. That's actually an enabler to move AI quicker it's not a hindrance. Good governance and good process is essential for moving AR forward.
All right, Andrew, great to have you in the studio this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with me. Andrew Holmes, the PwC New Zealand CEO. Time is 18 minutes after 7. Quick break. Next, St John have released their latest cardiac arrest report. Why are so few people doing the defib on females? We'll tell you that next.
Term deposit rates are falling, but your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Forsyth Barr investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Forsyth Barr, investment advice.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, you got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
Hey, Dad.
What's up? What's up?
You know that's from the 90s, right?
So's this fuel price. 6 cents off per litre on the Gallop, even on top of discount day.
That's what's up.
Download the Gallop. What's up?
"21 minutes after 7, new figures out this morning paint a pretty stark picture of cardiac arrest survival in New Zealand. In the past year alone, 2,500 people were treated for cardiac arrest. That's where your heart stops, nearly 7 a day, yet only 24% survived to reach the hospital and just 12% made it to 30 days. Early defib more than doubles survival chances, but only 6% of patients received it before an ambulance arrived. And while most patients are men, women, and Pacifica and Māori continue to face significantly worse outcomes. John Moores, Clinical Services Deputy Chief Executive at St John. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Gosh, it's a long job title. Good to have you in the studio. So first of all, your heart stops.
Yep.
And what percentage chance do you have of making it alive at hospital?
So currently, for return of spontaneous circulation to hospital, 29% on a certain cohort, but overall 11% on the patients that we start resuscitation on.
Right, so it's not great odds.
No, and it's been relatively static for 5 years, and the message for us today is to really try to think about how we can move that dial. So what can we do differently in terms of engaging community, government, and wider partners to try and improve those numbers?
Now, if there's a woman goes down in front of me, a man goes down in front of me, am I more likely, and I've got a defib, am I more likely to defib the man?
Look, that's what the stats say. So somewhere in the area of about 60% of women don't get defibrillation. Their odds of survival are 50% worse. So there's definitely a call out to think differently about how we approach women for cardiac arrest.
Why do you think that is?
There's a few things that we could have a bit of a chat about. I think for me, probably the one that we're really interested in moving the dial on is the stigma associated with potentially exposing a woman's chest to be able to do CPR, putting defib pads on and giving it a go. It's not weird, we should just be doing it.
100%. If for any woman out there who's just had cardiac arrest, you're not caring whether someone's going to see your tutars or not.
No, my mum would be furious if we didn't go and do CPR on her. She'd give me a good slap afterwards.
Exactly, exactly. So we actually just need to get that out of our heads.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. And do you think that would have a meaningful impact on whether they survive or not?
Oh, I think we know that survivability improves when you get a defibrillator, when somebody's calling for help, and when there's good CPR. It doubles your chances of survival. So if we can move the dial for women, but for everybody, it's going to have an impact.
What about why there are so many men who have cardiac arrest in the first place? Is that just because we're worse diets, more stress, what?
Yeah, look, I think the odds in terms of cardiac health, which would be a precursor to cardiac arrest, are not in men's favour. So perhaps some of the lifestyle decisions that we make, maybe losing a little bit of weight, maybe living a bit healthier, certainly will make an impact.
Okay, and why have you guys decided to look at this? Just because it's been static for 5 years? Hey, was it coming down and then now it's just kind of plateaued?
It's relatively static for the previous 5 years. We publish this report every year, but the big call for us this year is what can we do in terms of community education, community defibrillation, and make this a whole of country approach and not just the ambulance service.
All right, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for being with me. From St John, it's John Moores, 24 minutes after 7. Coming up next, a new study on sleep. Apparently Kiwis get more of it than anywhere else in the world. So shouldn't we be more productive then? Plus, after 7:30, we've got Chris Hipkins live from Wellington.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
It is 26 minutes after 7. Great to have your company on this Tuesday morning. Now, $239 million seasonally adjusted. This is how much our spending on discretionary items increased. This is for the December quarter. Discretionary is a very good word because it means stuff that you don't actually need but you buy anyway. So that is a great number. Adjusted, it was an increase of 0.9% for the December quarter retail sales. Garth Bray, Business Desk, will be here shortly to run us through the numbers, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. First, a global sleep survey has found New Zealanders get the best sleep in the world, averaging 7.5 hours per night. So what are we doing differently? What are we doing so well? And what actually happens when you don't get enough sleep? Karen O'Keefe is a sleep-wake researcher at Massey University, joining me this morning. Karen, good morning.
Good morning.
How'd you sleep last night?
A bit short, to be honest.
Was it? Well, how long did you get?
To be honest.
How long is short?
For me, last night it was around about 6.5 hours.
Okay, and what's the difference if you get 6.5 hours versus 7.5, 8? How different does your day look, Karen?
Quite different for some people. Our sleep need is somewhere in the ranges of 7 to 9 hours. So if we're getting less than that, quite often it means we have, immediate impacts on our ability to make decisions, process information, keep safe on the roads, and our mood changes quite a lot often as well.
What about places like in Japan? They get, I'm told, on average, less than 6 hours sleep a night. Does that mean they're running around making terrible decisions all day, or what?
That's a good question. I think different groups around the world have different group averages. So the average in New Zealand is around about 7 hours of sleep, but some people get much less than that. Some people get much more. But sleep's not just about how much we get. It's also about quality and regularity. And New Zealanders tend to have maybe sort of slightly poorer quality sleep, and they also have sometimes big differences between weekday and weekend sleep.
So when you say poorer quality, do you mean we're sleeping for a long time, but it's not as good sleep? Why not?
Lots of reasons. So some people don't have the opportunity for good sleep. They might be working shift work, or they might have situations where their sleep environment is not ideal. Sometimes we have medical conditions and things like that that can impact on sleep. And sometimes just that day meant that the activities we carried out weren't conducive to sleep.
Right, like what activities aren't conducive to sleep?
Aren't or are. If we're looking at we're looking at things like, natural light, so exposure to light across the day, good physical activity. Stress, of course, can impact negatively on sleep. So things like that. Also, sometimes what we've put in our bodies, caffeine and alcohol, and potentially food as well.
So the Dutch apparently are the second most rested, spending 7 hours and 24 minutes in bed on average. Do they have better quality than us as well?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I know that the best data we have recently is from sleep trackers, where they looked at sort of hundreds of thousands of people, and it showed that New Zealanders on average were closer to the 7 hours, and our sleep efficiency, which is how much we're sleeping when we're in bed, was around about 85%. So not too bad on the averages, but we know that some people are not sleeping as well. So there's a group of people out there who really struggle every day.
Karen, for shift workers, for people who are doing odd hours, there's a lot of people in this building who wake up at 1/2 a sparrow's fart. My first alarm goes at 2:55. Will we die sooner?
No, I think that there's certainly a higher chance that you might develop some health conditions. So there are things to watch out for, like diabetes and heart disease, but it's not a given. And I think supporting our sleep is a really good way to help protect against some of those health conditions. So putting it up the priority list and doing the best that you can to get good sleep.
Thanks very much for your time this morning, Karen. Karen O'Keefe, a sleep-wake researcher at Massey University. Just a bit of heart disease. Ugh, who cares? Hey, by the way, you'll wonder why older people don't sleep as much as younger people. It's because they don't do as much. 7:30, here's news.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The government says it's putting its money where its mouth is after promising to back the growth of electricity generators. Genesis yesterday announced a $400 million capital raise for new generation projects, with the government pledging up to $200 million of that. It follows a commitment from Finance Minister Nicola Willis last year that the Crown would support gentailers to increase generation capacity. She says by committing capital, the government's both keeping its promise and meeting its obligation to maintain a 51% share in the gentailer. Our air traffic controllers are heading to places like the Middle East and South Asia in favour of higher salaries. Airways New Zealand has warned a parliamentary select committee that the world is starting to poach our controllers. Chair Darren Cusack says that this is concerning, but it does show that our controllers are trained to a high standard. Aviation Industry Association CEO Simon Wallace told Ryan Bridge our starting salary is around $110,000 to $115,000. He says Middle Eastern countries are offering figures a lot more than that, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One expert suggests vaping should be a last resort to help smokers quit. Newstalk ZB can reveal Health NZ has signed a $500,000 contract to provide free vapes to smokers after it conducted a trial last year. More than 7,000 vapes and 67,000 refills have been distributed in the past 2 months alone. Asthma and Respiratory Foundation boss Letitia Harding says thousands of smokers have quit using nicotine patches and gum, and vapes are not a proven tool. It's believed tinkering with dog control laws won't stop attacks, only sweeping reform will. 3 people were injured in an attack by 2 American Bulldog crosses in Christchurch's Brindwa on Saturday, just days after a fatal mauling in Northland. Auckland Law School professor Marcelo Rodrigues Ferreira says dog control laws are often tightened in the wake of high-profile attacks. He says that's a poor way of making policy, and evidence-based solutions would be far better. A memorial to the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine disaster is now due to be finished later than expected. The Department of Conservation's proposing to open a memorial at the disaster site a week prior to the November 19 anniversary. It had wanted the memorial done at the end of summer, but has revised the timeline to allow families of the deceased to give input on the design. It's been 4 years since the Kremlin launched its full-scale assault, costing lives and crippling Ukraine's economy. Ukraine's now seeking global support, including from New Zealand, for a new claims commission and special tribunal to hold Russia accountable for crimes of aggression.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, the Milan Cortina Olympic chef de mission Marty Toomey expects Snow Sports New Zealand to earn more high-performance funding after a haul of 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal, with 10 of the 17 athletes making finals. Nathan Cleary is saluting the legal brilliance of his father and coach Ivan after he had the halfback cleared to play Penrith's season opener at NRL League's judiciary. Mexican Tennis Open organisers claim that the tournament will go ahead in Acapulco despite violence after the death of the country's most wanted drug baron.
You're watching Ryan Bridge today on Herald Now and 3 Now. Great to have your company, 24 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Remember last week we spoke about the tolls going across the Auckland Harbour, because they'll either do a tunnel or a bridge, probably a bridge. Anyway, in this report from the Infocom, the Infrastructure Commission, they said you would have to toll both the old and the new bridge in order to pay for the construction of the new bridge, because otherwise people will just go on the free one and not use the expensive one, and then no one will have to pay. Despite that, Chris Hipkins yesterday said this.
Labor does support a second harbour crossing, but we won't penalise people for using the one that already exists. Under a Labor government, there will be no tolling of the existing Auckland Harbour Bridge.
So the question is, how do you pay for the new one? Chris Hipkins live next.
Herald Now weather.
Kia ora, another fine day for most of us. We have got a bit of a weak feature draped across the middle parts of the country, bringing a touch more cloud and some wetter weather around that western coast to start things off. But either side of that front, we've got some pretty decent weather. Down here in the south, perhaps a little bit cooler than yesterday, but plenty of dry, sunny weather, and highs back to around about 19 to 22 degrees Celsius through the daytime. As we head up the south line, we'll meet that cloud and some wetter weather around the western coast to start things off. But even here, it should dry up nicely for the afternoon. The cloud breaking away to give us some decent spells of afternoon sunshine. It'll also be a bit of a cloudier start through places like Taranaki down towards Wellington, with the cloud again thick enough at times to give an odd shower. But for most of us, it's a dry day, most of those showers about the ranges. The cloud, though, will creep up towards Hawke's Bay this afternoon, but again, plenty of dry weather and a fine-looking story through the Bay of Plenty and across towards the Coromandel. There's a few pockets of early morning fog through parts of Waikato down towards the Central Plateau, but here that clears off, and then a fine-looking day for Waikato northwards. Plenty of sunshine this afternoon.
You're watching Ryan Bridge today. It is 23 minutes away from 8, and this was from a State of the Nation speech yesterday. Chris Hipkins, Labor leader, talking about what they did and didn't do well last time.
I want to know that I can deliver on any promises that I make. That's the standard that I'll be holding myself to and our next Labor government to. Because frankly, Kiwis have had enough of promises that aren't kept. And I don't want to repeat that cycle.
So joining us now to not repeat that cycle is Chris Hipkins. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Was the list of your failures longer than the list of your successes, do you reckon?
I've been really clear that we've got to focus in on a core group of things. I've said jobs, health, homes and the cost of living are going to be my top priorities if we should form the government after this year's election. And that means that the commitments I make in those areas are going to be things that I know I can deliver on, because whether it's our previous government or the current government or the government before that, people are looking at politicians and going, we don't necessarily trust any of the promises you make because we've heard it all before. And we have to break out of that. We've actually got to be realistic in what we promise, and we've got to know that we can deliver on it.
The Genesis equity raise, yesterday you said they've announced record profits and they should be looking to their own pockets before asking for money from the government. Do you know how much of their program they are funding themselves?
I haven't seen the breakdown of that, no. But
so why would you say? Why would you say that? You're pointing the finger at them. Why would you say that without first finding out how much money from their own pockets, in your words, they are or aren't using?
Since the mixed ownership model was introduced, so that's when the government sold off half of the generators, they have extracted billions and billions of dollars out of New Zealand consumers by overcharging them for their electricity, and they haven't invested in new electricity generation. Now they're coming back to the government and saying, we need you to give us more money so that we can raise capital to do something that they should have been doing for the last decade and a half that they haven't been doing because they've focused on making uber profits instead. That is something that the government is doing nothing about.
What if I was to tell you that they have, of the $400 million that we're putting in, to get equity, by the way, into Genesis, they are investing $1.6 billion for the new generation?
It's good that we're seeing new investment in renewable electricity generation in New Zealand. That's exactly what we want to see. But it should have been happening long before now.
You've also said they've made record profits this year. Do you know why?
Well, because of high power prices.
Rained a lot last year, that's how they make their money, but the year before was the opposite, so the opposite occurred. I mean, are you making cheap politics out of this?
No, absolutely not. We have a situation of manufactured scarcity when it comes to electricity in New Zealand, and that isn't acceptable. We have an abundant supply of renewable energy options. We should be developing those so that New Zealanders don't end up having to pay for mega profits for the electricity companies,
yeah, but they're not,
while they keep electricity scarce.
But Chris, they're not. It might be abundant, but only at certain times. That's the problem.
Well, no, that's not true. Actually, we've got a whole lot of...
It doesn't rain every day. It's not sunny every day.
But you don't need all of those things to happen at the same time. Generally speaking, if the sun isn't shining, there's often rain. If it's not raining, then there's more likely to be sun. Wind is intermittent, sure. That we can use our hydro lakes more effectively.
So are you saying that the energy crunch...
range of options.
Hang on. Are you saying the energy crunch that we experienced last year was manufactured?
The energy crunch is because they haven't invested enough in more generation. If they'd invested more and more generation, we wouldn't have had an energy crunch.
So thank God for the LNG?
No, absolutely not. That is a massive step backwards for New Zealand. It ultimately ties us to very volatile and potentially very expensive imported gas from overseas, when we should be developing renewable energy in New Zealand that is so much cheaper.
Do you know how much a new crossing over the Waitemata will cost?
I haven't seen the price of that yet because they haven't yet figured out where it's going to go, what the option is, whether it'll be a tunnel or a bridge, when it's going to be built or how much it's going to cost or what the specifications of it will be.
Roughly,
all of those things are pretty important.
They are, but nonetheless you've made policy announcements about this, so I want to see what detail you have garnered. I've seen estimates of up to $20 billion. You've seen those?
It will undoubtedly be in the billions. I do have a lot of sympathy for what Wayne Brown has said, though, that we need to make sure that what we're doing here is affordable. And that means looking at all of the options and saying, what is the option that's going to deliver the best value for money for Aucklanders? And it doesn't necessarily need to be the most gold-plated option.
Fair enough. But how do you know you're going to make enough money to pay for a new bridge by not tolling the old one?
Well, you have to figure out what you're going to build, where you're going to build it, when you're going to build it, and who's going to build it.
But you just admitted you know none of that.
Before you figure out how you're going to pay for it.
But you've just admitted you know none of that, yet yesterday you said you wouldn't toll the old bridge. So how do those two things stack up together?
Because ultimately, decisions we make about which new roads to build, and not just the Auckland Harbour Bridge, but which new roads we build around the country, have to be stacked up with good economic analysis of the benefits of those. And if they become so expensive that no one wants to use them, well, that probably answers the question as to whether or not there's the right economic benefit from building them. So I think this idea that we just go out there and promise a whole lot of new infrastructure, like the current government have with their roads of national significance, with no idea whether it's a good investment or not, and no idea how they're going to pay for it, is a cycle that we've got to stop.
The Infracom report made very clear that the reason you need to toll the old bridge to pay for the new one is that people will just use the free one and no one will use the expensive one, and you'll never get anything built. And that's exactly what you announced yesterday.
Well, certainly if you're tolling it at $9, that would be the case. And but at this point, we don't know how much the bridge is going to cost. So at this point, we've got to figure out how much it's going to cost.
No, but you've already halved your revenue opportunities.
What you're going to build.
You've already halved your revenue opportunities, haven't you? Because you've ruled out tolling the old bridge. So who's going to use the new one when you can go for free on the old one?
But we're talking about something that at this point we don't know what we're talking about.
Well, you started it. Yeah, but you started talking about this, not me. So why don't you finish it? Why would you use an expensive new one when you can use a free old one?
Not tolling the Auckland Harbour Bridge, the existing Auckland Harbour Bridge, which has already been bought and paid for, is a principled decision by us. In terms of how
much does it cost?
Harbour crossing. That is something that we will figure out. Well, hey, how much does it cost? We don't know.
Okay, all right. So we've
pay for it once we know what we're building.
Have you figured out what your pay equity claim is going to cost yet? 13 billion or thereabouts?
Oh, we'll set all of that out in due course as well.
See, the problem we've got here is you've got to
cut women's.
Now you've got what?
Right? No, we don't.
$10-12 billion for a bridge because you've ruled out half your revenue. I mean, who knows? You got $10-13 billion for a pay equity. The billions are adding up for you and for Labor. And how are we going to pay for them?
The bridge that we're talking about, Ryan, is probably still at least 10 years away. It's a long way into the future. There's plenty of time to figure out what we're going to build and how we're going to build it and how we're going to pay for it. In terms of pay equity, we are committed to ensuring that women get paid fairly. I'm not willing to stand here and say that women should accept less pay than men for doing the same work simply because...
I'm asking how much it's costing.
To figure out how to pay for that.
Yeah. How are you going to pay for it?
We're working through that
You're working through it at the moment.
At the moment.
Okay, so promise first, do the numbers later. What about the 30% GDP debt ceiling that Grant Robertson suggested was a good idea? Do you agree with him still?
When we set out our fiscal plan before the election, and it'll be after this year's government budget, we will set out where we sit on all of those issues, including those measures around debt to GDP ratios and so on. But I will say this on debt. At the moment, we're borrowing for the wrong things. Borrowing for long-lived assets, like infrastructure, can be a good investment for New Zealand. Borrowing, because we're not balancing the government's budget and paying the day-to-day bills properly, that is a problem. So we do need to rebalance around government borrowing what we borrow for.
Chris, given your in-principle decisions this morning, on principle, do you think it would be a principled decision to increase health and education spending at least in line with inflation?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay. And finally, landlords, should they expect that they will have to help fund some of this? Will you take away the interest deductibility as the previous government did that you were part of?
I've been, listening to feedback from landlords about that, and removing 100% of interest deductibility was, I think, something that we're unlikely to do in that same way again, but we'll set that out again when we set out our fiscal plan.
So you would instead do it like a lesser percentage, maybe 80% or 50% or something like that?
Well, you can keep speculating on that, Ryan. The reason that we're not making announcements on any of those things until after the government's budget is what I started this interview saying. I want to know that when I set out our commitments for the next election, that we can actually deliver on them.
Do you think doing that policy led to rents going up or down?
It had barely been implemented, so too difficult to draw a clear line on that.
All right. Chris, appreciate your time this morning as always. That's Chris Hipkins, the Labor leader, with us live from Parliament. It's 13 minutes away from 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock, forgive me. Time now for a quick break. Next, Garth's in with the day's business news, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. Then Bunnings and Uber Eats have done a deal so that you may never have to go to the hardware shop ever again. We have details before 8.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We've done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it?
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't do
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back. It is 11 away from 8 now. Time to talk business, thanks to our partners Forsyth Barr. The effects of the US Supreme Court ruling to strike down Trump's emergency tariffs have been rippling through the US market overnight. Here with the latest, Garth Bray, host of Herald Now Business. Garth, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So, more ripples from the court decision, Supreme Court decision. What do we know?
And the reaction, I guess, uncertainty is back. I guess you've seen stocks, the Wall Street S&P 500 down broadly. I think it's down about 1%. Last time I looked, you've seen the some overseas markets like the DAX dropping as well a little bit. FTSE's still pretty level at this point. Broadly, you're seeing, I guess, on the one hand, the idea that the overall burden of tariffs is going to drop. Most of the analysts say that it's basically going to reduce the overall burden, but there's just this uncertainty created by the reaction and the possible second-order effects if, the EU and other countries respond with retaliatory kind of measures and so on. And this whole notion that the way he's just put a flat tariff on everything effectively penalises, the UK, EU, Japan,
yeah, because they did deals.
Yeah, and
so what do the deals mean?
Well, the ones that didn't do deals basically have had a big uplift. That's your BRICS minus Russia, obviously, and Southeast Asia. Now it is showing up in some results. We've seen Apple's stock price is up, I think, about 1.6% intraday, and the same for Samsung. Apple's paid something like $3.3 billion worth of tariffs over the past 3 quarters. So whether they'll get that back or whether that cost is going to be off its books now, that's all sort of playing in. The dollar's slipped, I think, a little bit against its peers. People sort of punched their money to the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen as a sort of a safe haven and so on. So that's the broader picture anyway.
All right, what about here, your Fisher and Paykel's, etc.?
Yeah, they were pretty coy. I think we wanted to try and have a chat to them yesterday, but they did make a sort of a late morning announcement, an update on their earnings guidance, and basically they said that that their year to 31 March it'll be, basically that they weren't going to say what the potential refund impact of tariffs were until they report all their results in May, but they have basically increased their guidance. They were previously saying that they were going to make 2.17 to 2.27 billion, and they'd make a net profit after tax of 410 to 460 million. And now they've pushed that to 450 to 470. So they're basically saying more demand for their product out of hospitals and doing pretty well there. And Lewis Graydon basically saying, good growth across the full range of products. But it's complex looking at all of the rules and rulings that have come out and the various free trade agreements and so on. So it's hard for them to actually pin down. Bear in mind they manufacture in a bunch of different countries and they need to sort of see how that all lands.
Retail trade spending, interesting numbers for the December quarter, including discretionary spending. This is stuff we don't need, but that we just sort of want, actually.
Yeah, a little something. And look, I guess that was broadly, that was up 0.9%, right? 239 million. And annual growth was pretty encouraging at 4.4, quite broad-based. If we want to take a look at what happens when Garth plays around with AI, here's a little something I whipped up with Claude, if you want to pop up that heat map of New Zealand, which sort of shows you, Canterbury looks quite pendulous in that map, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, depends on which way you look at things, I suppose.
Or a bit saggy maybe, but it isn't saggy. That was up about 3% in terms of spend. And I guess you saw the other regions, Hawke's Bay doing really, really well. And your West Coast and your, your Taranaki dropping slightly. So, I mean, that's basically sort of giving you a picture of the country and how that looked in December.
I think it's not too bad, actually.
If you're a 5-year-old with crayons or Garth let loose with Claude.
It gives you the picture, doesn't it? It gives you the general idea.
It gives you the general idea. But, I mean, obviously, so we saw pharmaceuticals retailing up and electrical goods up as well, hardware spending. So, I guess, some sort of home improvement stuff going on. Obviously, you can sort of see where things were turning up. But interesting as well, the data showed 10 out of 15 of the groups that they measure showed price increases and only 5 showed decreases. So it's maybe a bit of a hint of that sort of inflation, sticky inflation wind starting to blow through.
Yes, but these numbers, the discretionary spend is ahead of inflation, isn't it? So it's not just accounting for inflation, it's actually us buying more stuff, which is good news. Garth, good to see you as always. Garth Bray, host of Herald Now Business, and you can catch more of that shortly. Business every day, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. Electricity demand is going to increase by 25% over the next 10 years. EVs, data centres, commercial, industrial users, they will lead the charge. It's part of the reason Genesis is doing this $400 million equity raise to fast-track solar and batteries to smooth out Huntly's supply during dry years. Earlier on News Talk ZB, I spoke with John Harbord, who's Major Electricity Users Group Chair, and I started off by asking how worried our big power users are about the security of electricity.
Security of electricity is pretty critical. When you run a manufacturing business and you need to be operating 24/7, you need to know that the electricity is going to be there every minute of every day.
What's driving the increase in their demand? Are they expanding, or is it decarbonisation, or both?
It's an element of both. The other thing that's driving electrification is obviously lack of domestic gas. So people who can are trying to move away from using gas, and one of the most attractive options obviously is electricity.
Does this announcement ease their minds?
Certainly it's welcome from a security of supply perspective. The one thing that Genesis is leaning into very heavily is dispatchable firming capacity, which is just a fancy way of saying an ability to store electricity and then put it into the system when we don't have enough water in the hydro lakes and the sun and the wind aren't cooperating. And that's the most important electricity for the system, that backup supply that's there whenever you need it. So, look, I think from that perspective, it's a really, really good thing. It doesn't do much of the short-term for affordability issues, but it's a whole other issue.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I found it interesting yesterday. Everyone was focusing on the solar, but it's more the big battery at Huntly that will smooth the dry years that's more important here, surely.
Yeah, from our perspective, that's really, really critical. But the solar aspect is really important as well. Now, it has to be put in the context that our other large generators are also planning to build a lot of solar. And the theory is that if you build a lot of solar, you generate a lot more electricity during summer, which is when solar electricity obviously is more effective. But what that means is the hydro generators keep more of the water in the lakes because they don't need to use it. And then that's available during winter when we're often short.
That was John Harbord, Major Electricity Users Group Chair, speaking to me on News Talk ZB earlier this morning. Right, it is 3 minutes away from 8. Soon you will be able to order hardware, garden supplies and trade essentials to your house like takeaways as Bunnings announces a major new partnership with Uber Eats. Paul Spain, Gorilla Tech CEO, with us this morning. Hey, Paul.
Good morning, Ryan.
So how's this going to work? You just need a hammer and then someone puts it in the back seat of a car and off you go?
Something like that, yep. It'll be sitting there next to somebody's order for Chinese takeaways or Indian or what have you, and it'll wing its way to your home within 60 minutes. They're saying that the prices of the goods will be exactly the same as if you normally bought them. On top will be a delivery fee, although that will be discounted for Uber One members who effectively get a near zero sort of delivery cost.
Is that right? Uber One, I've always wondered about that because they are prompting you to join. How much does it cost? It's like $10 a month or something, and you get.
There is a service fee in there as well that they sneak in, so it's not quite free, but it certainly brings down that cost. So you can imagine tradies who would maybe want to save on visits out to a hardware store, have things delivered. They're probably likely to be a target there.
True. Is there a greater risk? I mean, it's one thing to order a burger, a chicken burger versus a meat patty, but if you're ordering technical parts for a plumbing job or whatever, there's a lot more room for error, I would assume.
Oh, look, you're going to need to know exactly what you want to be able to order that, and there's still going to be the majority of transactions are going to take place in store. But what this does is it positions Bunnings as kind of the go-to versus in the New Zealand market, might attend when you're sitting at home and you're busy, you're working on something, you need that delivery. It also takes a bit of commerce away from Amazon, who are trying to dominate in the Australian and the New Zealand markets. And I think for Uber too, it helps them stay ahead in this market. Whereas if we look at the US, they're not the number one player there. They want to keep that position in this market. So I imagine that both Bunnings and Uber are taking a little bit of a haircut on margins to do this, but it helps keep both of them dominant.
Keep the volume up. So how long before we move from cars that are driven by humans delivering stuff to, I mean, you see those little toy machine things driving around LA. Are they any good? And then you've got your drones that'll be delivering stuff. Is it long before they come and take over and eat Uber's lunch?
That's certainly part of the picture. Uber are partnering with those sort of firms, so we would anticipate sometime in the next few years to see Uber probably doing that in the New Zealand market, as they're experimenting with in other markets as well. There's some pros and cons of that technology, but of course it's something that brings the overall costs down.
Yeah, so now that Uber does they can do your groceries, they can do your pharmacy, they can do your food. I mean, what's next? Is there anything they can't do?
Well, maybe it becomes sort of predictive, and they get to know you well enough that they'll have the delivery arriving before you've ordered it.
Until you get the bill, you wouldn't even know. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much, Paul. Paul Spain, Gorilla Tech CEO. Right, time now is 8:01. Kia ora, good morning. You're watching Ryan Bridge today, Tuesday the 24th of February. Great to have your company. On the show this hour, there's a call for our drug laws to be overhauled. We talked to a researcher from the University of Otago about why next. And just days after Andrew Mountbatten wins his arrest, Peter Mandelson has been charged by police. We'll have the latest from Chris Shipp, ITV's royal editor, in 10 minutes. And most CEOs in New Zealand are worried that we won't and can't keep up with AI. Will AI really change the landscape that quickly? The panel on that shortly. First, here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The government says it's putting its money where its mouth is after promising to back the growth of electricity generators. Genesis yesterday announced a $400 million capital raise for new generation projects, with the government pledging up to $200 million of that. It follows a commitment from Finance Minister Nicola Willis last year that the Crown would support gentailers to increase generation capacity. She says by committing capital, the government's both keeping its promise and meeting its obligation to maintain a 51% share in the gentailer. Our air traffic controllers are heading to places like the Middle East and South Asia in favour of higher salaries. Airways New Zealand has warned a parliamentary select committee that the world is starting to poach our controllers. Gia Darren Cusack says that this is concerning. but it does show that our controllers are trained to a high standard. Aviation Industry Association CEO Simon Wallace told Ryan Bridge, our starting salary is around $110,000 to $115,000. He says Middle Eastern countries are offering figures a lot more than that, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One expert suggests vaping should be a last resort to help smokers quit. Newstalk ZB can reveal Health NZ has signed a $500,000 contract to provide free vapes to smokers after it conducted a trial last year. More than 7,000 vapes and 67,000 refills have been distributed in the past 2 months alone. Asthma and Respiratory Foundation boss Letitia Harding says thousands of smokers have quit using nicotine patches and gum, and vapes are not a proven tool. It's believed tinkering with dog control laws won't stop attacks, only sweeping reform will. 3 people were injured in an attack by 2 American Bulldog crosses in Christchurch's Brindwa on Saturday, just days after a fatal mauling in Northland. Auckland Law School professor Marcelo Rodrigues Ferreira says dog control laws are often tightened in the wake of high-profile attacks. He says that's a poor way of making policy, and evidence-based solutions would be far better. A memorial to the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine disaster is now due to be finished later than expected. The Department of Conservation is proposing to open a memorial at the disaster site a week prior to the November 19 anniversary. It had wanted the memorial done at the end of summer, but has revised the timeline to allow families of the deceased to give input on the design. It's been 4 years since the Kremlin launched its full-scale assault, costing lives and crippling Ukraine's economy. Ukraine's now seeking global support, including from New Zealand, for a new claims commission and special tribunal to hold Russia accountable for crimes of aggression.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, the Milan Cortina Olympic chef de mission Marty Toomey expects Snow Sports New Zealand to earn more high-performance funding after a haul of 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal, with 10 of the 17 athletes making finals. Nathan Cleary is saluting the legal brilliance of his father and coach Ivan after he had the halfback cleared to play Penrith's season opener at NRL League's judiciary. Mexican Tennis Open organisers claim that the tournament will go ahead in Acapulco despite violence after the death of the country's most wanted drug baron.
And returning to our developing news this morning, Peter Mandelson, the high-flying member of British society, has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police began investigating Mandelson after it emerged that he appeared to have leaked sensitive government documents to convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein while serving as business secretary. Mandelson was sacked as the UK's ambassador to the US late last year. He later resigned, he quit the Labour Party, he quit the House of Lords. Police say he was arrested in Camden following 2 search warrants that were issued to his addresses. He's been taken to a London police station where he'll be interviewed, and consultations between police and the Crown Prosecution Service about the case are apparently ongoing. We will have updates for you as they come to hand.
Herald Now Weather.
Kia ora, another fine day for most of us. We have got a bit of a weak feature draped across the middle parts of the country, bringing a touch more cloud and some wetter weather around that western coast to start things off. But either side of that front, we've got some pretty decent weather. Down here in the south, perhaps a little bit cooler than yesterday, but plenty of dry, sunny weather, and highs back to around about 19 to 22 degrees Celsius through the daytime. As we head up the South Line, we'll meet that cloud and some wetter weather around the western coast to start things off. But even here, it should dry up nicely for the afternoon. The cloud breaking away to give us some decent spells of afternoon sunshine. It'll also be a bit of a cloudier start through places like Taranaki down towards Wellington, with the cloud again thick enough at times to give an odd shower. But for most of us, it's a dry day. Most of those showers about the ranges. The cloud, though, will creep up towards Hawke's Bay this afternoon, but again, plenty of dry weather and a fine-looking story through the Bay of Plenty and across towards Coromandel. There's a few pockets of early morning fog through parts of Waikato down towards the Central Plateau, but here that clears off, and then a fine-looking day for Waikato northwards. Plenty of sunshine this afternoon.
Experts warn New Zealand's drug laws are failing to the point of damaging people's health. A new briefing from the Public Health Communication Centre shows overdoses have soared and there are calls for drug use to be treated as a health issue rather than a crime. Dr. Rose Crossan joins me now from the University of Otago's Department of Public Health. Dr. Rose, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So you're talking about not legalising but decriminalising heroin and methamphetamine. How is that responsible?
Well, at the moment, our drug laws are not effective at reducing drug use. If criminalisation is meant to send the message that drug use is not okay, it's not working. What we're calling for is to have drug use treated as a health issue so that people can access the support that they need regardless of what drug they're taking. And yes, that would include heroin and methamphetamine.
So it would be illegal to sell it, but if you're caught with it or using it, you're not going to go to jail. Is the idea that that person that used it would then be more open to getting help or getting treatment?
Absolutely. Yes, that's the way that decriminalisation is intended to support help seeking and to make sure that people don't get a criminal justice response when what they really might need is a health-based or response or educational support.
See, I've long agreed with the position that you're taking. However, it only works, doesn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but in jurisdictions where they've done this, where you also pile a whole bunch more money into addiction services, into making sure that there's a bed at the rehab if someone wants to use it. So we actually need to do both of those things. The problem, of course, you run into is that no government wants to spend that money. So are you better not then to legalise it, tax it, and actually have some money to spend on the problem?
Well, firstly, I completely agree with you, and we call for a greater investment in treatment and harm reduction services. And I would always challenge that argument, that it's somehow unnecessary money. We're already spending money now on a criminal justice response, and that is expensive. So we'd be better off redirecting those resources into providing a health-based response to people. So as for a first step, I think decriminalisation alongside investment is really, really important. But we also, in the briefing, suggest that we should have a regulatory model that's responsive to changes in evidence, and so that it would start to begin to set up the framework for regulating lower harm substances. At the moment, some of the evidence isn't there yet for that, but we should be able to move in that direction with responsible drug laws.
The problem with this always has been that you run into public opposition. You get people who say, it looks like you're just saying, tick the, yes, go smoke meth or whatever. How do you get around that perception?
I think there's obviously a lot of stigma against people who use drugs, and it's a misunderstood issue. I think that there are various arguments that are going to appeal to different people. Partly we could talk, we're talking about what works and what doesn't. Regardless of how you feel about drugs, we should be investing our taxpayers' money in things that are effective. And I think that argument is going to resonate for some people. For others, understanding that drug use is a health issue and recognising the humanity and needs of people who use drugs is also going to be important.
Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for being with me from Otago University's Department of Public Health. That's Dr. Rose Crossan. Right, time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll head to the UK. Chris Shipp, the Royal Editor for ITV, is with us, not only on Andrew, but now on Lord Mandelson, who has overnight been arrested by UK police.
Term deposit rates are falling, but your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Forsyth Barr investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Forsyth Barr, investment advice.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit.
You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, you've got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On the hits.
Hey, Dad.
What's up? What's up?
You know that's from the 90s, right?
So's this fuel price. 6 cents off per litre on the Gallop, even on top of discount day.
That's what's up.
Download the Gallop. What's up?
Welcome back. Lord Peter Mandelson has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This comes after claims he leaked confidential UK government memos to Jeffrey Epstein. Police searches are continuing at the former home of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, former Prince. Pressure mounting for a wider investigation into his links with Jeffrey Epstein. The government hasn't ruled out a judge-led inquiry or changes to the line of succession, something that the Australians in the last wee while have written to Starmer asking for. Chris Shipp is Royal Editor at ITV News and joins us live from London. Chris, lovely to have you on the program.
Hi, how are you? Morning.
Very well, thank you. Can you first of all just fill us in on what's going on with Mandelson?
An arrest is what's going on with Mandelson. I mean, there are two police investigations, criminal investigations here in the UK at the moment. One relates to Lord Peter Mandelson, senior government aide of, when I was doing politics for Gordon Brown all those years ago, and before that Tony Blair. But more recently, the British ambassador to Washington. He has been arrested by the Metropolitan Police here in London and is currently being questioned. There are the pictures. I think you can see. No, those are not today's pictures of him being arrested. That's him getting into his car, but that's the house from which he was arrested earlier. And the other criminal investigation ongoing at the moment is the one that you mentioned into Prince Andrew, the former Prince Andrew, and whether or not he committed a crime under misconduct in public office. And that's why he was arrested last week on Thursday.
And not much sympathy amongst the British public for these two men right now, Chris.
I mean, you know, every police investigation has got to take its course, but it would be fair to say that when it comes to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, he's not, shall we put it this way, the most popular royal. In fact, he's always right at the very bottom of the list. But his reputation has been damaged for a long time, but he's never been convicted of any crime. He's been accused of many things, and he's always denied any wrongdoing. But he's currently a suspect in a police investigation. I'm sure you probably heard this last week, but the first time a senior member of the royal family has been arrested since 1647, and we all know that was quite a long time ago, and that was when King Charles I was arrested after the English Civil War and later lost his head. But just puts it into some sort of context. I don't know why I needed the hand movement, but into some sort of context about why this is such a big moment. I mean, a historic moment. But of course, Mandelson's Andrew is under arrest, and he denies all the allegations against him.
I know these are only allegations by police at the moment, charges that have, well, in one case, not even charges that have been laid, but arrests that have been made. Does it sort of reinforce, do you think, to some in the British public that there has been something dodgy going on between these, in the upper echelons of British society?
I mean, I think that is potentially what these Epstein files have created, that impression. Although, you know, there's plenty of people in America right now who are saying, how come is it that the Brits are taking this seriously and they're launching criminal investigations and arresting people, but yet in the US, absolutely nothing is happening at all? And that's probably much to do with the fact that which files were released and which files weren't by the Trump administration. But yeah, I think there are questions at the moment about, did we look into this seriously enough? Did the monarchy turn a blind eye? Did the late Queen Elizabeth not see what some other people were seeing when it came to the behaviour of her son, be that criminal or otherwise? Did she make a misstep in not dealing with this problem earlier and leaving effectively a time bomb for her son King Charles to deal with? And he's done what he could, of course, but I think there is damage being caused to the reputation of the monarchy right now.
Do you think, I mean, you've been across this, you've been doing this for some time now, Chris, do you think she was too soft on her son?
I mean, look, when these allegations came to light, and I think hindsight is a wonderful thing, and we all know more now than we did when Queen Elizabeth was alive. But I think many people could well argue that she didn't do much else other than make him step down as a working member of the royal family and take away some of his military titles. You know, at the point of her death, he was still a prince, he was still a duke, he still had that big house he was refusing to move out of, and it has been left to King Charles to sort all of that out. So, you know, it could be argued, and you do hear anecdotally that whenever anyone had a kind of issue when it came to the former Prince Andrew and they went to Queen Elizabeth about it, well, it never went very far, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Chris, appreciate that update from you this morning. Thank you very much. Chris Shipp, ITV's royal editor from ITV News live in London. It's just gone 19 minutes after 8 now. Next, Rob Campbell is with us. We have a full panel today, actually, from 10 minutes' time. Then after 8:30, travel, why Sydney should be your next overseas destination, thanks to our partners, House of Travel.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
Welcome back. It is 21 minutes after 8 now. Time for our panel today. Economist Rob Campbell and Marianne Spurtle from the Maxim Institute. Good morning. Good to see you both this morning. So we'll start with the drugs. We just had a researcher on who said you basically need to not legalise but decriminalise all drugs. That is the best thing you could do from a health perspective. Rob, agree?
Well, I'm not a health expert, but I think there's a lot in what is being said. We currently legalise a lot of drugs. I go back to the old days of Jefferson Airplane and the song Feed Your Head, and that's what most of us do. If you want to feed your head, get out of the space that's in your head. It's not hard to do these days. There are lots of drugs legitimately available to do it, from alcohol through to prescription drugs, etc. And we do demonise some particular drugs. I wonder if that woman's not trying to put my dealer out of business, actually. There is an issue here of health and the resources that we have to support people who are drug using and doing themselves and others harm, and I think you raised that point. So if we could do those things, and if we could do the other things that didn't mean people wanted to get out of their heads so much, then I think it's possible to do. I think it's a bit dangerous to do, just as it is with all drugs, but we could certainly lift the health attention of that we put onto drugs rather than the criminal intent.
Yeah, Marianne, your thoughts?
Well, there's trade-offs, obviously. So if you decriminalise, then for some people
it may be easier to get treatment. There might be other things that are easier, but you'll also have more people using the drugs because there's easier access. So you'll have more of the people who then become addicted, who experience psychiatric harms, who need the treatment. And are we going to have enough people to treat the people who now need treatment? So there may be some people who it's better for, but there are going to be others
who it's not. Do you think there are people out there right now who only don't do drugs because it's illegal?
Probably. Like anytime you legalize something and there's easier access, I mean, you look at the states that have legalized cannabis, use goes up.
Right.
Use goes up.
People who otherwise
higher
wouldn't
potency
have, they go, oh, well, now that it's legal, I'll give it a
There's
hoon.
just more use. And so there's more harms because you've got, they track like more fatal road crashes, more people hospitalized. So all of those things are going to go up if you legalize. The question is it worth it? I don't think it is.
Okay. It's one of those ones where it's so, as you say, so demonised that it's hard to change public opinion on it anyway, isn't it? It's quite entrenched.
I think we tend to swap drugs rather than start or stop drugs as availability becomes available. I understand at the moment there's more cocaine around in Aotearoa, and cocaine use is therefore going up only because there's more available. People are swapping drugs. People aren't suddenly deciding, I want to have some cocaine. They're probably deciding to swap from alcohol to cocaine because it's available.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit ironic. On the same day that all this is going on, Health New Zealand has announced that it's going to up the distribution of vaping for nicotine, all to get people off one drug and onto another drug. So there's not only hypocrisy, there's kind of a level of control in society which favours some drugs over other drugs, which I think is a concern. And so a health expert like the person you had on is well in place, I think, to be saying that we're approaching this the wrong way.
Now, the government's wants Auckland to do a whole bunch more homes. Well, we all do. 1.6 million more is the number they settled on rather than 2 million. Thank you very much. Now, the problem is there's no minimum car park requirements. And there's a great story in the Herald today about this, about a number of specific streets where they don't have enough on-street car parks and people just can't bloody get down the road. And there's a cyclist even, and you know what they can be like about cycle lanes. Even they said, actually, you need to have more parks. Don't put a cycle lane in. We need more car parks because there's just not enough room on the road. Is this a problem?
Yeah, parking isn't free, so we're either going to have to give up road space, that's a cost, or you give up, you can't have as big of a property. If you want cheaper housing, then you're going to have to give up the car park. And if you don't want to give up those things, then you end up having, cars up on the verge and everything. You've got to pick your trade-off. The question of whether or not the car park mandates a return, that's a question that I think there'll be different answers in different areas as to whether or not it's sensible.
If we're going to have more people in the city, which I don't particularly agree with, but if we're going to have more people in the city, we certainly need more houses. If you're going to have more houses, people are going to need transport. You either provide the public transport or you have to provide the means for them to park their private transport. I would have thought it's all pretty simple. So there is an issue. I'm biased on this. We keep getting penalised for parking in our own driveway. There's some guy from AT drives past and pings us with parking tickets.
But hang on, is it a driveway or is it a... What did they call it? They did a map in the news.
I know all that nonsense, but whether it's a driveway or not, it's the piece of land we drive across to get into our property, put it that way.
So you're getting...
I called it a driveway, called them simplistic.
You said at the start you don't think we should have more people living in the city. Why not?
I don't see any particular economic or social reason why we've decided we need the number of new people that the government appears to be deciding we need to come into New Zealand. Why?
I think they're just saying you need to make room for them.
Yeah. If you're going to have them, you certainly have to make decent housing for them. But the prior decision that you actually have as a target increasing your population is an entirely different question, and no one seems to really question that anymore.
Well, that's very true. I didn't really stop to. Is it not just because we need workers to do jobs?
Well, it's because we're obsessed with increasing the GDP. And yes, you increase the GDP if you bring more people in and they work and consume and do those sorts of things. But we should be stepping back and saying, what sort of society do we actually want? What would be a great Tamaki Makaurau? What would be a great Auckland? And we're not doing that. We're just saying, how are we going to live with the fact that we're pouring more and more people into the city?
All right. Maybe one for another day, Rob. The BAFTAs, did you see this, Marianne? Look, slightly awkward. Okay, what happens is there are two black men who are on stage who are presenting an award, actors. There's a guy in the audience who has Tourette's. Do we have a video of this, by the way? It would make it a whole lot easier. No, we don't. Okay, so let me explain it without offending anyone. There's a guy in the audience who has Tourette's, and he's yelling out a number of times as these presenters are presenting their award, the N-word, so something racist, right? Now, nothing is really done about this, and the presenter stands up at the end and says, look, I'm sorry if anybody was offended, but this is involuntary. And so the question then becomes, I mean, and it's a very delicate, difficult one to answer, but you don't want to sort of stop that person from attending because they have an involuntary reaction to something, but at the same time, you don't really want people having that sort of garbage yelled at them. How on earth do you manage a situation like that, Marianne?
Well, apparently the guy did eventually remove himself, if I read that right.
Yes, he did.
I'm just surprised that it was after the third time and not after the first. I feel like some of those things should be maybe self-managed.
Yeah,
it sounds like they handled it well as you could, with unexpected stuff like that.
Yeah, just a bit awkward.
They probably thought David Chappelle was in the audience, didn't they?
Probably. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for coming in this morning. Economist Rob Campbell and Marianne Spurtle from the Maxim Institute. Time is 8:30. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
The government says it's putting its money where its mouth is after promising to back the growth of electricity generators. Genesis yesterday announced a $400 million capital raise for new generation projects, with the government pledging up to $200 million of that. It follows a commitment from Finance Minister Nicola Willis last year that the Crown would support gentailers to increase generation capacity. She says by committing capital, the government's both keeping its promise and meeting its obligation to maintain a 51% share in the gentailer. Our air traffic controllers are heading to places like the Middle East and South Asia in favour of higher salaries. Airways New Zealand has warned a parliamentary select committee that the world is starting to poach our controllers. Chair Darren Cusack says that this is concerning, but it does show that our controllers are trained to a high standard. Aviation Industry Association CEO Simon Wallace told Ryan Bridge, our starting salary is around $110,000 to $115,000. He says Middle Eastern countries are offering figures a lot more than that, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One expert suggests vaping should be a last resort to help smokers quit. Newstalk ZB can reveal Health NZ has signed a $500,000 contract to provide free vapes to smokers after it conducted a trial last year. More than 7,000 vapes and 67,000 refills have been distributed in the past 2 months alone. Asthma and Respiratory Foundation boss Letitia Harding says thousands of smokers have quit using nicotine patches and gum, and vapes are not a proven tool. It's believed tinkering with dog control laws won't stop attacks, only sweeping reform will. 3 people were injured in an attack by 2 American Bulldog crosses in Christchurch's Brindwa on Saturday, just days after a fatal mauling in Northland. Auckland Law School professor Marcelo Rodrigues Ferrer says dog control laws are often tightened in the wake of high-profile attacks. He says that's a poor way of making policy, and evidence-based solutions would be far better. A memorial to the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine disaster is now due to be finished later than expected. The Department of Conservation is proposing to open a memorial at the disaster site a week prior to the November 19 anniversary. It had wanted the memorial done at the end of summer, but has revised the timeline to allow families of the deceased to give input on the design. It's been 4 years since the Kremlin launched its full-scale assault, costing lives and crippling Ukraine's economy. Ukraine's now seeking global support, including from New Zealand, for a new claims commission and special tribunal to hold Russia accountable for crimes of aggression.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
In sport, the Milan Cortina Olympic chef de mission Marty Toomey expects Snow Sports New Zealand to earn more high-performance funding after a haul of 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal, with 10 of the 17 athletes making finals. Nathan Cleary is saluting the legal brilliance of his father and coach Ivan after he had the halfback cleared to play Penrith's season opener at NRL League's judiciary. Mexican Tennis Open organisers claim that the tournament will go ahead in Acapulco despite violence after the death of the country's most wanted drug baron.
A New Zealander is among the injured after a bus skidded off a mountain road in Nepal, killing 19 people. The bus was heading to the capital of Kathmandu when it went off the road and plunged more than 200 metres into an icy river. There were 44 people on board. 25 have been taken to hospital for treatment. No details yet about the injured New Zealander.
Herald Now weather.
Kia ora, another fine day for most of us. We have got a bit of a weak feature draped across the middle parts of the country, bringing a touch more cloud and some wetter weather around that western coast to start things off. But either side of that front, we've got some pretty decent weather. Down here in the south, perhaps a little bit cooler than yesterday, but plenty of dry, sunny weather and highs back to around about 19 to 22 degrees Celsius through the daytime. As we head up the South Island, we'll meet that cloud and some wetter weather around the western coast to start things off. But even here, it should dry up nicely for the afternoon. The cloud breaking away to give us some decent spells of afternoon sunshine. It'll also be a bit of a cloudier start through places like Taranaki down towards Wellington, with the cloud again thick enough at times to give an odd shower. But for most of us, it's a dry day. Most of those showers about the ranges. The cloud, though, will creep up towards Hawke's Bay this afternoon, but again, plenty of dry weather and a fine-looking story through the Bay of Plenty and across towards Coromandel. There's a few pockets of early morning fog through parts of Waikato down towards the Central Plateau, but here that clears off, and then a fine-looking day for Waikato northwards. Plenty of sunshine this afternoon.
25 minutes away from 9 now. Time to talk about your next holiday destination thanks to House of Travel. Sydney is boasting a strong lineup of Broadway calibre shows and large-scale events this year, including Phantom of the Opera, Disney's The Lion King, you name it, they've got it. Here to tell us all you need to know so you can start packing your bags is Patrick McCarthy, owner-operator at House of Travel in Ponsonby. Patrick, good morning. Lovely to see you.
Good morning, Ryan. Great to be here.
Good to have you. So what are we doing? Why are we going to Sydney?
Well, number one thing about Sydney, it's close. You don't have to go to Las Vegas. You don't need to go to New York to see these shows. You don't need to go to London to see these shows. It's right at our doorstep, just over 3 hours. You're in a great city, and it's got some fantastic things to offer, some fantastic shows.
Tell us about some of these shows. The opera?
Yes, Phantom of the Opera, so celebrating 40 years this year. This is Honda Opera, and the great thing about this opera is the Phantom of the Opera is it is at Macquarie Point in the Botanical Gardens. Seats about 3,000. It's all outdoors. The stage is on the water, and you can actually see the backdrop of the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. And once the show's ended, there's fireworks. It's out of this world. Highly recommend it. And we've got a fantastic deal there. A 3-night package at the Grace Hotel. A reserved ticket for Honda Opera, and it starts on the 27th of March and ends on the 3rd of May for the Phantom of the Opera. A reserved tickets, $1,129 per person, and flights are additional to that. Approximately about $650 onwards in cost.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's March. You can go March this year. You're talking
about. March this year. Yeah, I just do it. I think it's Phantom of the Opera is iconic, and it's one of those shows. Once you've seen, you want to see it again.
And the backdrop to that.
Oh, incredible!
Right, Vivid Sydney. Tell us about this.
Yes, Vivid. It is Australia's largest light festival. It runs from the 22nd of May to the 13th of June. It is an amazing light show. They light up everything in Sydney. They light up the Opera House, they light up the Harbour Bridge, they light up the old custom building. They're getting modern now. They've got drones, so they do these amazing drone shows. One thing I love about Vivid, it's all ages. Choose your adventure. If you're young and hip and you want to get down to Circular Quay and, drink and watch the lights, you can. Or if you want to stroll along the Botanical Gardens at a relaxed pace, they've got lights through there. It is just, the city just comes to life. House of Travel, we've got a 3-night stay at the Grace Hotel, plus a Vivid Starlight Harbour Cruise. Best place to watch it from the water, $725 per person.
Brilliant. Patrick, you always come to us with the deals.
Yes.
It's lovely to have you
What
back.
a bargain, eh?
It's lovely to have you back doing this. They are bargains. Disney's The Lion King. We can go check that out too.
You definitely can. So this is in the district part of Sydney, so Haymarket area, Chinatown area, from the 18th of April to the end of August. Again, what I was saying, we've got this right at our doorstep. Lion King, iconic. We've got Nick Afoa. He's a Kiwi who actually played Simba for 12 years at the Lion King's London's West End show. He's going to be playing Mufasa. Plus there's a couple of other Kiwis there in the show as well.
Brilliant. Are you seeing more people do this, travel for events like this?
Yes. It's just a great way to actually travel, to actually something to look forward to. And the great thing about Sydney, so close, it's a truly huge metropolitan city. There's plenty to do there, and it's just a great thing to get away. Sort of 2-3 night stays, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do people, I mean, I know that House of Travel take care of everyone that calls them, but what's the best way to get in touch? How will you help?
Best way to get in touch, so call us 0800 713 715, and that will direct you to your nearest store, or houseoftravel.co.nz. Get the best deal, get in quick. They do sell out quickly, and we're here for you.
Brilliant. Patrick, great to see you as always. Patrick McCarthy, owner-operator at House of Travel Ponsonby. That's thanks to House of Travel. Right, it is 21 minutes away from 9. Time for a quick break. Next, we're off to Wellington for the latest from the capital.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff. Always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Vacant City Acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back. It is 19 minutes away from 9. To Wellington we go now, where a hotel listing promising a penthouse experience has attracted the attention of the Commerce Commission following complaints of broken balcony rails, ceiling tiles, windows and leaks. Sammy Carter is our Wellington reporter joining us this morning. Sammy, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So what building are we talking about here?
So we're talking about the Wellington Hotel on Manor Street. Now, these guests are quite upset. They paid around $1,200 for their room for a 4-day stay. Now, they want compensation, but the hotel says that they offered a free car park or a full refund if the guests decided to leave. But the guests say that they had nowhere else to go as most of Wellington was booked up for a festival.
That's terrible. How much did this room cost?
So it cost them around $1,200. The hotel has previously had some pretty bad reviews. It's pretty budget friendly, but one Google reviewer said that they'd recommend the hotel if you love living like a vampire.
And what did they do about the complaints?
So they say that the complaints are out of their control, that the leaks are out of their control, and that if the guests just would have left, then they would have been able to fix things. They feel quite hard done by the complaints, feeling like they offered fair compromises to the guests.
All right, Sammy, and what about infertility?
Yeah, so we have a woman who was in Palmerston North and struggling with fertility issues. So she went to Health Hub Project, and there she says that she was ignored for 4 years. When she moved doctors' clinics, they found multiple tumours in her ovaries and bowels, one so large that it actually protruded from her stomach. Now, that large tumour has been removed, and she's actually been able to conceive 2 children, but she's taken this to the Health and Disabilities Commission, as she actually has to wait for those other tumours to get larger and more cancerous, and then she's going to need to have all of her reproductive organs and her bowels removed. She blames the Health Hub Project in Palmerston North, saying that had they listened to her at the time, her health would not be where it is today.
Right, Sammy, appreciate that update. Thanks for being with us. Sammy Carter, our Wellington reporter. Time for a quick break. Back soon.
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Hip-hop and R&B. Flavor.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
Welcome back. It is 8:45 now. Labor leader Chris Hipkins has criticised Genesis Energy over its profits and the fact that taxpayers will be forking out to build new solar farms and a giant battery at Huntly. The Labor leader joined me earlier on the show and I asked, do you know how much of the investment program that Genesis has announced that they are funding themselves?
I haven't seen the breakdown of that, no. But
so why would you say that? You're pointing the finger at them. Why would you say that without first finding out how much money from their own pockets, in your words, they are or aren't using?
Since the mixed ownership model was introduced, so that's when the government sold off half of the generators, they have extracted billions and billions of dollars out of New Zealand consumers by overcharging them for their electricity, and they haven't invested in new electricity generation. Now they're coming back to the government and saying, we need you to give us more money so that we can raise capital to do something that they should have been doing for the last decade and a half that they haven't been doing because they've focused on making uber profits instead. That is something that the government is doing nothing about.
What if I was to tell you that they have, of the $400 million that we're putting in, to get equity, by the way, into Genesis, they are investing $1.6 billion for the new generation?
It's good that we're seeing new investment in renewable electricity generation in New Zealand. That's exactly what we want to see. But it should have been happening long before now.
You've also said they've made record profits this year. Do you know why?
Well, because of high power prices.
rained a lot last year. That's how they make their money. But the year before was the opposite. So the opposite occurred. I mean, are you making cheap politics out of this?
No, absolutely not. We have a situation of manufactured scarcity when it comes to electricity in New Zealand, and that isn't acceptable. We have an abundant supply of renewable energy options. We should be developing those so that New Zealanders don't end up having to pay for mega profits for the electricity companies,
yeah, but they're not,
while they keep electricity scarce.
But Chris, they're not. There might be abundant, but only at certain times. That's the problem.
Well, no, that's not true. Actually, we've got a whole lot of...
It doesn't rain every day. It's not sunny every day.
But you don't need all of those things to happen at the same time. Generally speaking, if the sun isn't shining, there's often rain. If it's not raining, then there's more likely to be sun. Wind is intermittent, sure, that we can use our hydro lakes more effectively.
So are you saying that the energy crunch...
range of options.
Hang on. Are you saying the energy crunch that we experienced last year was manufactured?
The energy crunch is because they haven't invested enough in more generation. If they'd invested more and more generation, we wouldn't have had an energy crunch.
So thank God for the LNG?
No, absolutely not. That is a massive step backwards for New Zealand. It ultimately ties us to very volatile and potentially very expensive imported gas from overseas, when we should be developing renewable energy in New Zealand that is so much cheaper.
Do you know how much a new crossing over the Waitemata will cost?
I haven't seen the price of that yet because they haven't yet figured out where it's going to go, what the option is, whether it'll be a tunnel or a bridge, when it's going to be built or how much it's going to cost or what the specifications of it will be.
Roughly,
all of those things are pretty important.
They are, but nonetheless you've made policy announcements about this, so I want to see what detail you have garnered. I've seen estimates of up to $20 billion. You've seen those?
It will undoubtedly be in the billions. I do have a lot of sympathy for what Wayne Brown has said, though, that we need to make sure that what we're doing here is affordable. And that means looking at all of the options and saying, what is the option that's going to deliver the best value for money for Aucklanders? And it doesn't necessarily need to be the most gold-plated option.
Fair enough. But how do you know you're going to make enough money to pay for a new bridge by not tolling the old one?
Well, you have to figure out what you're going to build, where you're going to build it, when you're going to build it, and who's going to build it.
But you just admitted you know none of that.
Before you figure out how you're going to pay for it.
But you've just admitted you know none of that, yet yesterday you said you wouldn't toll the old bridge. So how do those two things stack up together?
Because ultimately, decisions we make about which new roads to build, and not just the Auckland Harbour Bridge, but which new roads we build around the country, have to be stacked up with good economic analysis of the benefits of those. And if they become so expensive that no one wants to use them, well, that probably answers the question as to whether or not there's the right economic benefit from building them. So I think this idea that we just go out there and promise a whole lot of new infrastructure, like the current government have with their roads of national significance, with no idea whether it's a good investment or not, and no idea how they're going to pay for it, is a cycle that we've got to stop.
That was part of my interview with Chris Hipkins, the Labor leader, earlier on the show this morning. It's 9 minutes away from 9. Now to talk business, thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr. Quite a flurry of half-year results posted, so let's tick them off this morning. Garth Bray, host of Herald Now Business, is with us back at the desk. Garth, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Let's kick off with Mercury.
Yeah, right. Obviously, it's a big player in the market, and I know you were talking to Genesis earlier today, but look, so they've posted a EBITDA of 537 million for the half year. That's up 28% on the half year of 25. So obviously the lakes are full, she's been raining, do quite well. Wee bit of expectation that there might have been an uplift in full year guidance, but they're saying that that remains on track. So we'll just sort of see how that plays out once people digest the full results. Whether they sort of like that or think, oh, you know, could have done better. Looking further down, we've got PGG Wrightson, obviously, which is a big rural provider, and they've announced a positive half-year result, as they say, with operating revenue 619 million, up 49.1 million, or 9%. So I guess you're just saying basically great execution in a pretty supportive market at the moment, pretty favourable commodity prices as well, just really doing well for them in some pretty key segments as well. So, you know, red meat, I think, is the story behind that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Now, what about Vulcan Steel?
Yeah, look, they've struggled a wee bit, it's fair to say. I guess, you know, pretty closely tied to construction and so on. They've just completed some purchases there, I think, in roofing industries. But they are saying basically, look, it's the economic climate remains difficult across New Zealand and Australia. Earlier indications suggest that the overall market's stabilised and entering a sort of a recovery phase, which is the kind of talk that you like to hear. So they were reporting EBITDA of 56.3 million, down 1.1% for the previous comparable period. So still a wee bit of work for them to do in the second half as hopefully construction takes.
We have had a load this morning. We've got property for industry and NZME to get through. Property for industry, how do they look?
Yeah, not bad. They're obviously a big commercial landlord, $2 billion portfolio, but heavily in industrial and commercial, so market demand's been a wee bit soft in some of those areas. Nonetheless, they did some revaluations on about 19 of their properties, fair value gain of those of 3.2%, so basically the value of their stock increasing there, and I think overall reporting, they've got a range of different measures that you want. Interim results of profit after tax of 46.9, up 18.2 million, so doing all right there. And last of all,
but not least,
NZME. How do you want to say that one? I guess, look, a lot of interest in the cost out program that's been going on there. That I guess that we've sort of seen about I think a $12 or $13 million impact on that in the coming quarter. And oh crikey, the computer's just crashed, which is probably not a great sign there. Look,
maybe that's part of the cost out program.
Click OK and we'll be okay. Yeah, look. Effectively, statutory impact of 13.3 million and EBITDA of 62.3, up 15%. So earnings up, I guess, largely driven by the fact that there was some cost reductions and also some interesting revenue growth there for OneRoof, which will be one that the market watches pretty closely.
Brilliant. All right, Garth, good to see you as always. Thank you very much. You saved the day. Garth Bray saves the day thanks to our partners, Forsyth Bar. It is 6 minutes away from 9. Now, the Tourette's saga at the BAFTAs, we mentioned it earlier. Well, here it is.
Good evening. Deborah and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
We're here to celebrate the artists who expand what's possible on screen.
So what you heard but didn't hear was the N word being bleeped out. Now this happened 3 times. So once, awkward, 3 times. Tourette's syndrome advocate John Davidson says he's deeply mortified after the uncontrollable outburst at the BAFTA Film Awards broadcast a racial slur to millions of people. It was live on the BBC. Davidson was attending the ceremony to celebrate I Swear, the film about his life and the origins of Tourette's syndrome. Throughout the night, he could be heard shouting expletives, something BAFTA had warned guests about prior. But when he said the N-word during the award presentation by Sinners stars, who you just saw there, Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, Davidson chose to leave the auditorium. The BBC is now facing criticism for leaving the ceremony's recording, including the audible slur, online for 15 hours before removing it. Right, it is 5 to 9 now. There are warnings to Kiwis in Mexico as violence breaks out after the killing of a notorious drug lord. The drug boss, known as El Mencho, died on Sunday after a shootout with Mexico's military. Previously, a police officer, he was the leader of the infamous New Generation drug cartel. He was injured during the military operation in a town in central western Mexico. The 59-year-old and 2 others died as they were flown to Mexico City. 4 gang members were killed at the scene. His death has now sparked chaos throughout Mexico. One tourist filmed plumes of smoke surrounding a popular holiday beach.
I can see the flames underneath that black smoke. Major flames there. Huge plumes everywhere. Another big one over there. Another one directly behind this resort we're staying at. Pretty much surrounded by this right now.
New Zealanders in the affected areas have been encouraged to monitor local media for updates and follow the advice of local authorities. The now iconic photo of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor seen in the back of a car after his arrest last week has been hung in the Louvre. In a stunt posted to social media, the UK-based group Everyone Hates Elon stuck the framed picture to the wall in the museum along with a caption that reads, "He's sweating now." Yeah, apparently the memes have been quite popular over the weekend. Now, a couple of quick things before we leave. We've got a little bit of time on our hands. If you see a woman in cardiac arrest on the side of the street and a defibrillator is there, please use it. That's one thing we learnt this morning, that apparently we don't want to embarrass anybody, so women are less likely to receive a defib, even though they are just as in need as men. More men die from cardiac arrest than women, though, because we don't exercise as much, we have more stress, and we eat poorly. So that we should also fix. Labour leader Chris Hipkins on the program this morning hinting that he is looking at the interest deductibility for landlords. This, of course, was hugely contentious at the last election. Because, well, actually the one before that, because Grant Robertson just decided that they would take away the ability for landlords to claim interest, to deduct the interest, and be treated as essentially businesses, or normal businesses. Chris Hipkins this morning hinted that they may be bringing that back, although it might not be at 100%. Now, the Liberation Day tariffs are gone. So the Supreme Court in the US has made a ruling about those. Trump sort of must have seen this coming, and he immediately takes them off the table, but puts in a whole bunch of new ones at 15%. The drug trafficking tariffs as well, they had to go, but he's put in new tariffs. Now, this raises questions, and there was an interesting piece from Minter Ellison about this yesterday, which I had a read of this morning. They say there is significant potential refund opportunity. So if you are an exporter sending your stuff to the US and it was slapped with the tariff that the Supreme Court has now ruled was illegal, do you get a refund for all of the tariff that you have paid thus far? Well, Minter Ellison says there is potential for that. The trick is to get a claim in quickly, because there is a narrow window for getting any such refund. Right, time is 1 minute away from 9. Thank you so much for watching this morning, for all of your emails. We appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow from 7 o'clock for more news. In the meantime, nzherald.co.nz.